Hello, and welcome to another edition of Front Porch Conversations here at Advent Christian Village. I want to introduce you to our guest today, Marie Bryan. Marie, welcome.
Thank you.
And we're going to be just chatting as if we were sitting on the front porch here, right by the river at Dowling Park. Marie, tell our viewers where you were born and grew up.
I was born in a little town called Scott, Ohio, and that's about 100 miles south of Toledo, 100 miles north of Dayton, in a farm country. And about 350 people in my town, and went to a little school and graduated with 36 in my graduating class.
Well, that was smaller than my class, but not like a lot of people's classes. And what are some of your favorite childhood memories?
Well, one of them was when I always rode the bus, so I would have the opportunity when they stopped the bus at a railroad track, I would be able to get out, run across the railroad track, and wave the bus on.
That was your assignment all through school?
That was my elementary assignment. And I played on a girls' softball team, and I was younger than all the other girls, so the coach taught me to scratch down like Pete Rose, so they would walk me every time because I couldn't get the strike zone.
And did you have siblings?
I have one sister that's 6 years older and a brother that's 3 years younger.
And how would they describe you as a sibling?
Let's see, how would they describe me? They don't communicate a lot, so I'm the in-between person. I'm the middle child too, so I talk to my brother a lot and I talk to my sister a lot. They just don't talk to each other very much.
So you graduated from high school in Scott?
No, well, it was kind of Scott, but Scott didn't have a school. It was consolidated, so it was called Blue Creek High School.
And from Blue Creek High School, what did you do?
I went on to college.
And where was that?
I went to Findlay College, now it's university in Findlay, Ohio. And so graduated from there in health, physical education, and English.
And what was your first job?
My first job was in Vermilion, Ohio on Lake Erie, and I nearly froze to death. I would have to supervise the cheerleaders and go to all the basketball and all the football games and sit out. It was sleet and snow. It took me all weekend to warm up.
And did that have some bearing on your next decision about education?
I only looked for education and jobs south. So then I went back and got my master's degree in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, in special education. And again, I only looked south, and my next job was in Daytona Beach.
So you continued moving south?
Considerably.
But at some point, you altered that path a little bit and moved somewhat north, but because you're here.
Yeah, well, I came to Florida in '67 and worked at the Center for the Blind in Daytona for about a couple of years, and then friends that lived in Boca Raton thought I should come down and be close to them. So I was counselor at a place I was hired down in West Palm Beach, and I was counselor for children 10 to 16-year-olds that were incorrigible, so to speak, or they had incorrigible parents, whichever. A lot of them had parents that certainly were the ones that I think helped the juveniles in their problems, but of course the parents stayed at home and the children got sent away to Sable Palm.
Well, you're one of the first neighbors I met, and then we attend the same church. So I've heard some stories about those days. You want to share some of those adventures that the youth took you on?
Are you talking about West Palm Beach?
Uh-huh.
Well, I did that for 20 years, and some were very sad situations. Some would appear at my door, just stoned with drugs and all that sort of thing, or have needle marks up and down their arms. I had a lot of illegitimate, not a lot, but some illegitimate children named Brian. And I stood up with some of the children also that finished at Sable Palm.
And so you lived in South Florida for 20 years or longer?
Yeah, 20 years. And then it was kind of wild, the rat race. It's like living on a speedway. I decided to look for something that was a little quieter. In Daytona, working at the Center for the Blind, I took the people that were visually impaired, and they got to ride around the Daytona racetrack in a special vehicle for them to see how the incline was in the speedway. And I took them to Cape Kennedy, and they got to drive in a special van up on a launch pad for them to feel how high they would be going up. Then they took them into an auditorium and gave them like packets of the food that they ate and different models of the spacecraft so they could feel that. So, and I also taught them to bowl with a guide rail.
Well, they had great adventures, I bet, because of you going along and arranging those
And vice
things.
versa.
Well, you started talking about wanting to look somewhere that didn't feel like living on a speedway. How did you get to this area?
Well, I had friends a friend that wanted to live on the river out of O'Brien. And so one Thanksgiving, she and a bunch of friends invited me to come up to O'Brien. And so there was a piece of property, 5 acres, that was down the road from them. So I purchased the property and thinking that I was going to retire sometime. And then push come to shove, I started looking for a job and wasn't very hard to get one, I guess. And I got one in Jasper, and screened little preschoolers to get them into services before they got to kindergarten if they needed. So I covered 5 counties and made home visits, and that was an adventure.
Well, I know from experience, if you want to go anywhere in like the 5-county area that's not on the map, Marie can take you there.
I drove about 600 miles a week, and most of the time I had a pickup truck, which was wonderful. The suspension system was good. So they handled all these dirt roads and the rutted paths pretty good.
And so then you built a house on the river at the...
I did.
At O'Brien?
I built a house on my little 5 acres and had just 100 feet on the river, but it was a good amount of bank I had where I could enjoy fishing and also bringing a canoe in on that bank. And also, it was a nice place for the dogs to cool themselves off in the summer.
And how long did you work in that program?
From 88 to '03, so it was about 15 years. And then I retired in '03.
What would you say were some of your special interests?
A little bit of traveling. And as Ann knows, that we've traveled to Ireland, and we just got back a month ago from a Mediterranean cruise. And I've been to Alaska, been to Hawaii, been to a lot of the United States, so got a ways to go. And hopefully everything looks good for the Passion Play in Germany next year.
And you have a trip coming up too.
To Cuba.
Yes.
This is about my 4th trip to Cuba on a mission trip with our Episcopal Church. And we have a sister church in Matanzas, Cuba, and we take medicine and food, so forth, to the people. And we also, a few years ago, were able to install a water filtration system at their church, and people were able to come in from the community and with their little bottles and their little bicycles and get fresh water.
And it's made a big difference in that community.
I would say the people are so gracious and so thankful that they're able to have some clean water instead of being sick all the time. So what goes around comes around. We feel like we were rewarded a lot too by just seeing the people come in and get the water and be so humble.
You took another trip that I'm aware of that really impressed me. And you went to Mexico for how long?
Oh, Mexico. I went to Puebla, Mexico to learn Spanish. And it was for a month. And I went every day. And for a while.
It was a particular program to learn Spanish, right?
Yeah. And they only spoke Spanish, so if you were not fluent in Spanish, you had a few obstacles here and there by learning. But they also took you on field trips at least once a week and more to all these wonderful sites in Mexico. Believe it or not, they have a pyramid and a lot of ruins, Mayan ruins and all that. And people were saying, "Weren't you scared?" And I was like, there is almost a lot of policemen at every corner. And I walked about 5 blocks to school every day and home.
And you had a purpose for that trip.
Yes, I had a lady that I met lives here in the village that influenced me in some ways to help her with ESL classes. And so I started with just a few that were interrupting her classes that she teaches because she's fluent in Spanish. And then I have now, as of last year, we completed 10 years of our ESL classes at St. Luke's.
And then also for our viewers that don't know what ESL means.
English is a second language. And it's amazing the students that we had. Not a lot of people think they're from Mexico, but we've had people from Vietnam, Japan, India, a lot of
Puerto Rico.
Yeah,
which
Puerto
is
Rico.
possession.
Yeah. So a lot of different countries, not just Hispanic either. We had to cover several languages, even though primarily we spoke English in our classes if we could. And they would come from their jobs without any food and come to our classes from 7 to 9 o'clock every Monday and Thursday night. And they were just so thankful. And there are several that got their citizenship through our classes. And so we were happy to help them whenever we could.
And I know from this point of view of the church, our church, that a lot of other people got involved in that ministry as well. Even though they weren't teachers, helping in other ways with doing the meal for the students twice a week. And
we had babysitters that helped taking care of the children if they brought their children. We had people that helped furnish snacks and food. About halfway through our classes, we had a little break, and we furnished not major meals, but things that at least get them healthy enough so they can make it through the night.
When did you move to the village?
In '03.
Right after retirement.
Right after retirement. Several of my neighbors out at the river had moved. And I figured, because I'm active, so I worked down by the river, weed eating and stuff like that, and I thought, I could be dead 5 days and nobody would even know out here. Because they were gone or the closest friends had moved. So I met Nancy Lowe, who I used to come to the artist series programs with her and some of her friends. And so my thought was, if I ever move, I'm going to move to the village. And also, it's so much safer here. And for someone that lives by themselves, this is a place to be.
And you live on Wildwood Drive in Riverwoods, right?
I do. Close to a lady that you probably all know by the name of Ann Thompson. And next to Paul and Flora Cook, where you probably know them.
And you've done different volunteer things here at the village as well?
Yes, I worked at Twice Nice for quite a while when the Carters were still supervising that. Pomeroy with the furniture and Jerry with the shop. And so I did that and enjoyed working with Jerry and Pomeroy. And I spent a little bit of time with the Village Voices. And here and there when people ask me, like Christmas time, I was able to serve over at a Good Samaritan. And I have volunteered over there sometimes for different things.
And I know just from watching your coming and goings, you're always doing something for some neighbor or friend here at the village. So,
well, I like to work outside. So if someone has something for me to do, like plant a tree or a bush or mow the lawn, not for everybody, why, I'm happy to do that.
and I know you've talked about some of your special interests, but I know photography is one of your special interests.
Well, if you would see my table in my living room now, the other night I spent time separating pictures that I had finally developed on the Mediterranean cruise. Some from Rome, some from Florence and Pisa, some from Marseille, and a lot from Barcelona.
If you had a piece of advice to give to a young person, what would that be?
Well, right now, I see a lot of young people that spend all the time on their iPhones and don't even know how to write a thank you note. And my advice would be for adults teaching them or young people, keep busy, care for other people, give. Volunteer. There's places in every town that you can volunteer and give, whether it's through the church or other organizations. But the only way that you show you care and get help yourself is if you give to others. And just listen to them. You don't even have to give them something. Just listen to an older person. Give them a little bit of your time.
What's on your bucket list still?
I just go with the flow. Like, I have friends that say, come up to the mountain. I go to the mountain. Let's go. We're going to Passion Play. Okay. And, just some travels, just to stay healthy enough while I am healthy to be able to go see things and enjoy things, even if it's a long weekend. Doesn't have to be a 2-week trip.
What would you describe as one of the most life-changing experiences in your life?
Church. I went to a Cursillo. A lot of people don't know what that is, but that's part of our Episcopal church where it's like a weekend retreat, so to speak. And at the end of the weekend retreat, there's people from all over our diocese that walk up a hill with illuminated candles. And so they were walking up singing, and I was standing in a row with the other candidates that were there. And in the background, there was lightning flashing in the background. And I thought, I think Christ is going to come today. And then when we got in and we had communion, I saw a rainbow. And so that was life-changing in regards to me spending more time thinking about God, volunteering at the church, being part of the church family that I'm in.
Thank you for sharing that. And you didn't mention that it was dark when they were walking.
Oh yeah, it was like 6 o'clock in the morning, or 5:30 and 6 o'clock in the morning.
Well, I think you've certainly taken the things that you learned there and put them to good use.
Well, I hope so. And I hope I can continue as long as I'm able.
Anything else you want to tell our viewers today?
No, I probably covered a little bit more than I thought I was going to today. And just hope that I can continue caring for people and being healthy and being at peace with God.
Thank you so much, Marie.
You're welcome.
And I want to thank each of you for watching today.